Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Ramadan Mubarak, Ramadan Kareem, Ramadan Saeed. And just for you to know, it's lovely to know that Kareem is that we are asking Allah to make this a generous Ramadan, that we learn to be generous, and may Allah be generous with us in this month. Ramadan Mubarak is that may the blessings, and in a more generic way, different areas use different ways of doing it, but the most standard is the Mubarak, is the Barakah, which has much more meaning of at multiple levels. Let there be blessings for us and for the whole month and for everybody in it, whether at every level. So I just like to bring that in, that may it be a very blessed time for us, and this time, little bit of time we have, may it be that it's of value to us, taking it forward, of just benefiting. We read the Quran, we read it all from cover to cover, but just pick out, let's say, of some of these conversations and what are our take-home messages we can take every day from a tiny little snippet of a conversation within the Quran, because it is timeless. The fact that Allah put these conversations in the Quran, there's obviously a purpose for us to take home a message from them and what to do or what not to do. So here in the second passage, in the second conversation, we had a conversation with the angels and Allah, and now we're going to get into the second one. So before I start, Subhana Rabbika Rabbil Izzati, as I will start with Rabbi Shrah li Sadri wa Yassir li Amri wa Ahlul Uqdatam min Lisani yafqahu qawli. May whatever is being said and heard be beneficial for me in the first place and for whoever is listening out there. So Bismillah. So in this second story, I want to pick on the conversation Shaytan has with Allah now, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so when Allah gave the command, the angels understood that, okay, Allah, you're creating this new creation, Adam, for earth. And when Allah then told them in ayah 34, He says, bow down to Adam. وَإِذْ لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ اسْجُدُوا لِآدَمَ فَسَجَدُوا إِلَّا إِبْلِيسَ. So all the angels went down in sajda, illa Iblis, except Iblis. And he refused. Why? فَاسْتَكْبَرَ وَكَانَ مِنَ الْكَافِرِينَ. So he was kibr. So what we get here is kibr. So what is kibr? Kibr highlights an attitude of non-submission to Allah. So it's about the refusal, and what is that refusal? To bow down, which is what happens here. And then Allah said he became one of the kafirs. So later on, the reason of disobedience comes later in Surah Araf and elsewhere, in which he says, no, well, I'm better than them, I'm not going to do sajda to him. And he many places it's highlighted, the conversation of this is highlighted in many different places, and some of these key ones are that his arrogance surfaces time and again. His arrogance surfaces time again, and he's unwilling to take it. So it's in Surah Araf, in Surah Hijr, he says, in Surah Isra, in Surah Sad, and so on. And every time, and the breakdown is that he refused, and he refused because he says, I'm better than them. You created him from, you created me from fire, and you created him from clay. This is in Araf and Surah Sad. And then, so Allah expels him from paradise, condemns him, but he accepts this consequence of his disobedience, but he still has the audacity. He says, no, I still want respite till the day of judgment. And it's beautiful in Surah Hijr from 34 to 38, this dialogue. He says, give me respite. So Allah says, okay. Then he asks for a specific time when they're raised again. So there is all the, it's fascinating of what he asks, what Allah responds to him in Surah Hijr. And then so then also in response, what he says is, this is this is Shaitan's direct dialogue with Allah. And he says, I vow to mislead them. So he says, I will mislead Adam's descendants from the right, from the left, from the path, and attempt to prove that they are unworthy of the honor you gave Adam, the honor you gave him above me. So I will sit on their path, on their right path. So this also is there. Then he says, and look how kibr, and then what goes with kibr? It's like he justifies his own behavior. Then he says, because you have thrown me out of the way, I will wait for them on the path. It's like he's, it's Allah save us from this kind of attitude of Shaytan telling Allah, I lost the plot because you gave me you gave me a command which I was not willing to follow, I couldn't follow, and so the blame is on you. Why did you ask me to do the sajda? So this is also something extremely that I will, he says, then he really vows now that I'll assault them from the front, from the back, from their right, from their left, and you won't find them grateful. So you won't find them. You say you've created this vicegerent because you see the good potential, but I will show you their good potential is nearly zero. And then, and he says, illa liyabudun. I'm not quoting night. It's a beautiful verse in Ayah Hijr, but I'm not quoting it to you right now. You're welcome to ask me, and I'd be happy to give you all these references. And so, except those who are your pious servants. So Allah allows Shaitan the opportunity. He the limits are set. He said, okay, you can try and mislead them, but he assures them that you won't have power over his sincere servant, the mukhlis ones. And for over my servants you will have no authority except as those who themselves put themselves in the wrong and they're willing to follow you. So the ones who are willing to follow their lower nafs in the free will to obey or not to disobey if they choose to disobey, to obey or not to obey if they choose to disobey, then they are, I'll let you take them astray. I'll let you derail them. In Surah Isra, a little further, it also says that again, it's, you won't, as of my abd, of my pure abd, of my mukhlis abd, you will not have power. You will have no authority over them. So let's just come back. So what other take-home messages in here? The take-home message is the danger of arrogance. The arrogance which is a killer. And so now what's happening in Gaza and what's going on, the arrogance, and now that they then kill so many, ran down houses even in Lebanon, and just, it's one sin leads to another, why and how, is like what these military guys, going into people's homes, messing up with their private things, putting on female dresses or whatever. I mean, what kind of sick mentality is it? And this is what arrogance or thinking you're there, it leads you to that kind of sickness. So in Shaitan's refusal underscores this destructive nature of pride. And it led to his downfall, and not only that, he now wants to pull us, as many of us he can, and that's why we always say, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. The a'udhu is we seek refuge, A'udhu billahi, we seek refuge with Allah, minash shaitan, from the shaitan, rajim, the accursed one, the rejected one, the pelted one. Rajam comes from the word about the one who is pelted, like the stoning, the rajam we do when we are on Hajj. So we just heard how the pure angels in the last yesterday is how they did question, but it was within respectfulness, with wanting to understand. And so in our faith, we are entitled to ask questions to understand. But there's a very fine line, and unfortunately our Western education makes us that everything is up for questioning, everything. And not only up for questioning, it is done in an extremely disrespectful way. Oh, well, maybe this, maybe that. And the whole point of the Quran, which I love to share, which I feel I've learned from, is about changing your mindset of keeping it within being in humility. There's Allah, so don't want to question in an arrogant fashion. Like in Yasin, we have another conversation that man is so arrogant. What does he think he's doing? He puts himself as par to argue just because Allah has given us this talent of speech, this talent of aql, that we, instead of using in goodness to be in submission to fulfill Allah's laws and His commands that we need to be doing on earth, he puts himself as a adversary to Allah. Na'uzubillah. So humility, and it's like when you work for somebody or when somebody works for you, you love it when they do. As a home-based person, they do the dishes the way they like. They will wash the glasses before they wash the greasy stuff. They will do this. You love it when somebody follows your the way you want it to be done. So in this tiny, silly story is how Allah is so loves us, so pleased with us when we do all that's goodness for humanity, for the downtrodden, for others. He's like, look, I gave him a free will, but he chooses to fast. He chooses to spend his night in prayer. He chooses to be in generosity, which what this Ramadan Kareem is about, with the people who don't have our nature or our wanting to be more generous in this month. That all pleases Allah. So in a nutshell, we say yes, whatever we do, remembering ma khalaqta jinna wal insa illa liya'budun, we were only created to worship Allah, and in worshipping Allah, in becoming His vicegerent, this is what we need to be doing. And the list of things are there. But essentially, just by being in submission, everything else comes easy. You know, like if you get the right amount of water in the right amount of flour to make your dough, to make your roti. Once you've just got it, it just if you're doing it in a machine, it just rotates it to the best, to the perfect consistency that it needs to be. So when we get the plot right and when we are on the right track, and you will see how Allah's immense mercies unfold. You go, you're running late or something, but you say, no, I'm still going to do this. I'm still going to do this, you know, for Allah's sake. And when you do it, the parking comes easy, the green lights come easy, this happens. And sometimes it's amazing. I said, yeah, Allah, I didn't expect that, but thank you. And then, yes, you're happy to open your fast on the way. You haven't made it back in time at home. And lo and behold, somewhere, somehow, there is a bottle of water there for you. Either somebody gives it, or because you're at the conference, or because you're somewhere. And you just, I said, subhanallah, Allah, how did you put these dates here for me? How did you put this water in here for me? I was just out on an errand to do something good for you. So, and what Shaytan loves is because he promised them, he said, I'm going to mislead them from left and right and everything. So what is, again, our take home with the story of Shaytan is to know that it not only illuminates his extreme animosity for us, his extreme antagonism to us. He just hates us to bits. He never forgets that. He never forgets that he has to derail us every moment. And I love bringing this up, that we, after Ramadan, then we'll take a pause, we'll take a break, and now we need it. But Shaitan never lets up. He never lets up. Yes, we say now that in Ramadan he's locked up, but if all the waswas is thrown at us and with us, that we are still perpetuating whatever where we've been hooked with the Shaitan into doing wrong things. So we need to remember that the timeless insight into this is about being in obedience, in humility and reliance. And just because, let's say, I've been bad throughout the year, but now comes Ramadan and suddenly I feel I'll be fine. No, you know, it's at my cellular level, disobedience. So for it to come out takes time. So inshallah, if in this Ramadan we can take heed again from this story and just pray earnestly that we be in humility, in obedience to Allah, and not fall prey to the vow that Shaitan took about derailing us. So with that, I would like to end off today. And so, Subhana Rabbika Rabbil Izzati Amma Yasifun, wa Salamun al Mursaleen, walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. And may it be a blessed Ramadan Kareem for all of us. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.